Hello everyone and welcome to the Power BI quiz show. Tonight the topic is Tabular Editor, and who is better to do a quiz on Tabular Editor than Daniel. Hello Daniel.
Guys.
Hi and welcome to the show. I'm so glad that you will be part of this and create a quiz for us on Tabular Editor, this wonderful tool that we can use with Power BI.
Yeah, absolutely. It's my pleasure being here. I'm excited to see how you guys will deal with the questions that I have prepared for you. And yeah, some of you may know, I'm currently working on a new product, basically. I would say an evolution of the open source version of Tabular Editor that you guys already know. That product is called Tabular Editor 3. And right now we have about 100 users, more or less, who are helping me test out the product in order to make it ready for the final go live, which will happen sometime within the next 1 or 2 months. So yeah, really excited about that. I'm working full time on that now,
Wow.
so I can give it everything, and yeah, hopefully you will see that this new product is going to be a complete game changer in terms of authoring DAX code and tabular modeling in general.
Yeah, and actually you have donated a raffle prize, so the raffle winner for the quiz tonight will get 1 year license to Tabular Editor version 3.
Correct. Yeah. So the next version of Tabular Editor, Tabular Editor 3, is going to be a commercial product. So we thought it was very fitting as a gift for the raffle winner of this quiz to receive a free 1 year license for that.
Yeah.
So good luck.
Yeah, thank you. And that will be one lucky attendee, because there's a raffle prize. We also have the ordinary first prize. We have every quiz that's a $100 gift card to lego.com for the one that knows the most about Tabular Editor, or the one that's lucky to win the quiz tonight. So yeah, let's have a look at the prizes. For the raffle prize winner for last week, we have an Enterprise DNA 1 year membership. So that we will pick tonight from who attended 2 weeks ago. And then we have, of course, the first prize, which is this $100 gift card to lego.com, where you can buy all sorts of things for yourself, for your kids. Yeah, Lego is made in Denmark, so that's why we have Lego as the first prize. And yeah, it's also talking about Denmark. We are actually not that far apart from each other. I believe we live 1 hour from each other, but under these circumstances, I hoped when we made this agreement a couple of months ago that we could actually meet physically tonight and be together and made my first quiz with a live guest. But yeah, unfortunately that couldn't be the case. So yeah, we are one hour apart from each other now and doing it yeah, as we are so used to in these times with online. So this is the prizes, and then we have the raffle prize for last week. So here we have the attendees of the quiz last week. So yeah, congratulations to Nexus, that is Ricardo from Spain, who not only won the quiz last or 2 weeks ago, but also the quiz before that. So there's a big pressure on Ricardo tonight if he can win 3 in a row. But of course we also have a lot of other attendees on this list. So I have created here a random index number. So Daniel, will you help me pick a number?
Yes, I will. Let's see, and I can pick between 1 and 22, right?
Yeah. Oh. Exactly.
Yeah, there we go. So let's pick, what's it gonna be? Number 17.
Number 17. Let's see. I will make a drill through and see who the player is. And the player is called Div. Yeah, I don't know if that's
kind of HTML reference or something
or what
like
it is,
that.
but if you are part of the quiz tonight, then please contact me, and you will get the Enterprise DNA membership. If not, then the membership will have an extra raffle prize next week. Yeah. So let's just quick go through the prices one more time. We had the 1 year license to Tabular Editor version 3 for the raffle prize that we'll pick in next week, or not next week, 2 weeks on the next quiz. So let's go back and start the quiz. And sorry. Of course, we will have the intro to Kahoot for if there's some new players. So you will see the questions on your monitor, and then you go to kahoot.it on your mobile device or secondary one, just not the same device. That would make it difficult for you. And then you will get a pin, and then you should pick a nickname and maybe something that is easier to find than just you. So if you win the raffle prize, that I can find you. And please be aware we have a 3 to 5 seconds delay, so you will see the answers coming up on your mobile device before you see the questions on the screen. That's how we can do it here on YouTube. So to get you all started, we have one start question that's not awarded any points, and then we have the 10 real questions that Daniel have made for us around Tabular Editor. So that's very exciting. And the faster you answer, the more points you get. And please be aware, all the results are posted publicly. So with that introductions, we can go and start the quiz. So you will see the pin code coming up, and let's see if we have some players joining us. Yeah, Andy, Donald, Amadeo, Tilanta, Mango, Bitgear, yeah. Let's see, we have 16 players so far, 17, 18, let's see, 20.
Let me just say in advance that this quiz is really going to tell apart those people who have actually used Tabular Editor from those who haven't. So that's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, and if there's someone on the quiz that haven't used Tabular Editor, I'm sure you can learn something. And probably you all can learn something also around the history of Tabular Editor. I can reveal that there's some questions around that topic. So with 24 players, now let's start, and you can always go in and join later on. So because the first question is just a starter question that's not awarded any points. So what is the time of day at your place, just to get a feeling around where on the planet, on the globe you are placed? And you have here 30 seconds to answer this one. And quickly, we got the answers. So 1 in the morning, and 6 in the afternoon, and 11 in the evening, which is Europe time, I will say, and also 6 in the night. That's very impressive. So that will be Asia, I believe. So yeah. Thank you for all for joining, and welcome to the quiz. Let's get started with the first question. So when was the open source version of Tabular Editor released? And here you have 30 seconds. And the faster you answer, the more points you will get.
All right. So 2016 is the correct answer. And I see this was a pretty tough question. Some of you thought it was in 2015, but actually it all started when I was working at a customer, large Danish brewing company, and I had this task of working on a tabular model that had 1,200 or so measures placed in various display folders. We were using Visual Studio at the time to manage that. And then one day the client comes to me and says, hey, can you move these 800 or so measures into a different display folder? And I'm like, sure, that'll just take me about 2 weeks to do. And so I started, one by one, because that was sort of the only way we could do that back in Visual Studio. And after I did that for around half an hour, so I figured there's got to be a better way. And so basically I sat down and I started to tinker a little bit with some C# code to manipulate the TOM, the model metadata. And that's basically when the first version of Tabular Editor was released. The very first version 1.0 of Tabular Editor, the only feature that it had was that it allowed you to drag measures between different display folders, because that was all I needed it for initially. And that's when I thought, hey, why not just let people do everything and not only editing the measure display folders. So that's how it all started back in August 2016.
Yeah, and then we got features and features and features. So now it's have more features than Visual Studio.
Yeah, for sure.
And actually already had that from the start with that feature. But I love the story that it's come out of an actual product or project. So solving some issues you had.
In my opinion, products that are created out of frustration with existing tools are usually the best ones around, right? So,
so yeah, you have 5 years anniversary in August.
Correct.
Planning any celebration?
We'll see. If the COVID-19 restrictions are removed, we will probably have some kind of celebration party. I don't know. We'll see.
So, thank you for that explanation. Let's see, and we have Amadeo at top here from the start, but also the winner for last week is on the scoreboard. So, have the next question. What is the oldest version of SQL Server Analysis Services supported by Tabular Editor? So, the oldest version.
Yeah.
And you have 30 seconds to this one.
Ooh, a bunch of people thought it was back from SQL Server 2012. No, unfortunately, the correct answer is SQL Server 2016. So a little history here once again. So back in the good old days of SQL Server 2012 and also earlier versions of SQL Server, no, actually, SQL Server 2012 was the first release of SQL Server that featured analysis services tabular. So before that, we only had analysis services multi-dimensional. And so in the SQL Server 2012 and 2014 release, the analysis services tabular engine was using sort of a weird format. But I think actually there's another question around this topic, so I probably shouldn't say too much about why that is, because you will have to answer that in a different question. So for now, I think I'll just say that yes, the correct answer is 2016. That's the oldest version supported by Tabular Editor of SQL Server Analysis Services.
Yeah. And today, if you're not on SQL Server 2012, yeah, that's bad luck for you. Or a new version, of course. So, let's see the scoreboard now. And we still have Amadeo on top. So, here we have the next question. Why are earlier versions of SQL Server not supported? So there's a lot of text to read, so we have 60 seconds to this one.
Yeah, so hopefully I didn't spoil the answer too much.
So 20 seconds to go. Yeah, and we talked about it before we started. We only have 1 minute of 30 seconds. 45 seconds would actually be a good time. But unfortunately Kahoot don't support that. So 5 seconds to go. And let's see the answer.
All right, so yeah, so most of you got that right. That's good to see. So yeah, unfortunately, I don't receive any kind of commission for for SQL Server upgrades. That would have been nice though, because I think I know at least a couple of clients of mine who upgraded their SQL Server editions just so they were able to use Tabular Editor. And the correct answer here, of course, as I was almost saying before, is that Tabular Editor relies on something called the TOM, the Tabular Object Model, which was not available in previous versions of SQL Server. So even though SQL Server 2012 and 2014 did have analysis services tabular models in addition to multidimensional, the problem was that they were using a different format for storing all of the model metadata. They were using the XMLA-based formats. So if you opened a tabular model BIM file in a text editor, you would see it was this huge XMLA code that made up the model. And then in SQL Server 2016, Microsoft switched to the JSON-based format, which is called the TOM Tabular Object Model, which is the one that is supported by Tabular Editor. And they also provided this really nice API, which is a way for Tabular Editor and other tools to work programmatically against analysis services using this simplified object model. So that made things a whole lot easier for third-party tool authors. So instead of having to actually write and read XMLA code, we could just now use this API, which makes things much easier. So yeah.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, and the TOM model is also the one that is in Power BI and it's been in Power BI, I believe, from the start. But first opened up later, so you could work with it with Tabular Editor.
Exactly.
So let's see the leaderboard now, and we still have Amadeo at top, but Nexus is now on the second place, and then we have Bob and Fran and Depashi. So now it's a multi-select, so that means that 1, 2, 3 or all 4 could be the right one here. So what are some benefits of the open source version of Tabular Editor? There's of course a lot more than the ones you see here. So, but what are some of them? So that could be only 1, 2, 3 or all 4 of them correct.
And this is one of the questions that are probably difficult to answer if you haven't actually used the tool.
Exactly. And this might also some of the things that will change with version 3.
Who knows?
So 3, 2, 1, and here we have them.
Yeah, so almost all of these answers are correct. The only thing missing from the open source version of Tabular Editor is DAX IntelliSense. So when you're writing DAX code, Tabular Editor does not provide any suggestions. There's no the little call tips that suggests you what the parameters of a DAX function are. There's no drop down that shows you names of tables, columns, measures, and so on to make it easier. So all this time I have always been telling people that Tabular Editor is not really a tool that's well suited if you're new to tabular modeling or writing DAX code. You have to know your way around these things. It's more focused on productivity for those people that are used to writing DAX code and who already know the syntax and so on. So yeah, but I must admit that DAX IntelliSense is actually one of the things that people have been asking for, if not the most, then at least one of the top 3 or 4 things that people want to see in Tabular Editor. But unfortunately, it's not something that is very trivial to implement, and so far it has not unfortunately been possible to make it into the open source version of Tabular Editor. But all of these other things you see here, undo, redo, copy, paste, offline metadata changes, those are already work, and I believe these are also some of the features that people really like about Tabular Editor, because it just makes things much more productive. It just feels more, you can make changes lightning fast. You don't have to wait for things to recalculate, or the little working on it spinner that we see all the time in Power BI Desktop. There's nothing of that sort going on in Tabular Editor. And just the fact that if you make a mistake when you're creating a new measure, you can undo it just by hitting a button and that kind of stuff. So lots of good features, and as Just also said, there's a lot of other stuff going on in Tabular Editor. So if you haven't tried it, I definitely recommend that you check it out.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So let's see. Here, if you answered all 3 correctly, you will get 3,000 points. So it could change a lot, but we still have Amadeo and Nexus. But we now have Bitgear, or the Asgear from Iceland, who also live in Denmark actually. So let's have the next one. And here we have double points. So when using Tabular Editor as an external tool for Power BI Editor, which of the following is not supported? So this is an emphasis on supported, I believe.
Yeah, so it's single answer. Which of the following is not supported when using Tabular Editor against Power BI Desktop?
So 3 of them are supported, yeah, we can say.
Yes.
And you have a lot of time here. All answered now?
All right. Yeah, so most people got this right. Of the things, of the answers shown here, only tables are not supported. When we released the external tools integration for Power BI Desktop in July, and I say we because I was actually involved with the Power BI product team on creating this feature within Power BI Desktop. We had to sort of limit the kind of data operations that it would be possible to do, because some of the stuff so basically when you consider the full tabular object model, there's a lot of stuff you can mess around with in Tabular Editor, but the problem is that in Power BI Desktop there's a lot of dependencies on other components that are not necessarily exposed through the tabular object model. So one example is for tables. Power BI Desktop manages the partitions on every table in the model based on the Power Query expression that you have set up. And so it's not really a trivial thing to sort of disconnect that from Power BI Desktop in order to let a third-party tool like Tabular Editor make changes to the tables in the model, because then it would also have to take care that the correct Power Query queries are added to the report, and so there's a lot of stuff going on. So we had to sort of figure out, okay, what would be the most important use cases, what would bring the most value from an external tool perspectives. And so for that reason, this feature is initially limited to just a few modeling operations, which are adding, modifying measures, so that you can quickly and easily create a lot of measures in bulk. You can copy paste existing measures. You can use scripts in Tabular Editor to quickly create a bunch of new measures for time intelligence purposes and all kinds of stuff. You can add and edit calculation groups, which is actually a feature that Tabular Editor sort of unlocks, because the UI of Power BI Desktop does not allow you to create calculation groups. And the same thing goes for perspectives. Those can also only be added through an external tool. But the funny thing is that there's actually a consumption experience in Power BI for these things. So calculation groups just work. Perspectives can be used with the new personalized visuals feature in Power BI Desktop. So even though you cannot actually create the perspective inside of Desktop, you would need an external tool such as Tabular Editor for that. You can still sort of benefit from having perspectives in the model. And over time, as this feature is GA, so external tools for Power BI is still a preview feature, but as it is GA'd, we will see that more and more of these modeling operations will become possible. And ultimately, one day, hopefully, external tools will be able to manipulate the entire model. So
do you know,
yeah.
is there any news around when it will go GA?
I don't know.
Yeah, because
Sorry.
today there was to release this wave 1 of 2021, and I don't know if it
Yeah.
was specified there, but
No.
that's on the roadmap for the next 6 months, but not in so much detail that it might have.
No, I don't know why it wasn't mentioned there, but yeah, let's just say soon and then leave it at that. I don't know exactly.
Yeah, because we had XMLA read-write endpoint going live. Was it last week, 2 weeks ago? So a lot of these enterprise features is now arriving to Power BI.
Yeah, correct.
So yeah, and I believe 7 people answered perspectives, and I also think that because it's not a feature that's used so much, because it's so limited where you can use it with these personal visuals.
Exactly. Yeah. No, but actually tables is the one that is not supported. By default, when you install Tabular Editor, it will sort of only allow you to make changes that we know are supported. But there's a setting inside of Tabular Editor. I believe it's called something like allow experimental Power BI features or allow unsupported Power BI features or something like that. And if you enable that setting, then you will basically be Tabular Editor will let you modify the entire model. But then the problem is that you may end up doing things that are not supported, which could ultimately break your PBIX Power BI model. It could cause Power BI Desktop to crash, and you could lose your data and so on. And in any case, Microsoft support will not be able to help you if you have made unsolicited changes to your Power BI data model.
So yeah, not supported, but you can do it.
Yeah.
So let's see the leaderboard now, and we still have Amadeo and Nexus on top. And Bertie is coming up on the 3rd place. So still very close. How is the open source version of Tabular Editor licensed? So you might have used Tabular Editor quite some time and know a lot of the features, but do you know which license does?
Yeah. And this is probably not interesting to any of the users of open source tools. You just care that it's free, right? So you don't really care about the license. So it'll be interesting to see. All right. So this was actually a good question since most people got this wrong. The correct answer here is actually an MIT license. There's not a lot of differences between these licenses. Mostly, if you look into the terms of the licenses, it's mostly about not having any kind of liability. So if you're using Tabular Editor and something breaks and you lose all your customers or your company's data, then it will not be my fault, and you can't drag me to court or anything like that. And it's also around having a copyright notice so you can freely do whatever you like with Tabular Editor and the Tabular Editor source code, as long as you just credit the original author, basically. And that's more or less the same thing regarding all of these licenses. The wording is a little differently. But I decided on MIT license for Tabular Editor simply because it was the simplest one of these licenses. So yeah, a little tricky question that will hopefully mix up the scoreboard a little bit.
Yeah, and version 2 of Tabular Editor, I believe, will always be on this. There's no changes coming up.
Yeah. Absolutely. The open source version of Tabular Editor will remain free and open source, and I'll make sure that it's kept up to date with new analysis services engine features for as long as I'm able. So even though the new version of Tabular Editor 3, as we talked about, will be a commercial version, no one is forcing you to buy into that. You can still just use the open source version of Tabular Editor. It will still be supported for the time being. Yeah.
And you will support it long time coming.
At least, I mean, in any case, it's also a good way for me to maintain my MVP status. So that's that. Yeah.
So, yeah, and we had a couple on the leaderboard that answered correctly on this one, so it's very close. Or we can see that the 2 top is actually in the 8,000 points, and then we have Percy, and we have Alex Dobler also coming up. Alex has also actually been a host and also been a winner of the quiz prior So let's see the next one. Which programming language is used for scripting within Tabular Editor? So maybe you're using the scripting, and if you have been using it, you should be able to answer this one.
All right, so yeah, so most people got that right. Yeah, Tabular Editor has this scripting feature that allows you to basically automate every operation that you can do manually in the UI. So I mentioned earlier you could use scripting, for example, to generate measures. So let's say that you want to implement some kind of time intelligence in your model. So for each measure that you already have, you want to have a year-to-date version, a month-to-date version, previous year, year-over-year, so on and so forth. And typically these patterns would be the same kind of measure calculation that you want to apply, but now you want to multiply that with every base measure that you have in your model. So let's say you have 50 base measures. Budget, stock, sales, profit, margin, all of that kind of stuff. And now you want to have a time intelligence version of each of these measures as well. It would be a huge task to go over each of these one by one, creating these additional measures by hand. So for that kind of scenario, that's where scripting comes in handy, because it allows you to just create the script once, and then you can re-execute the script for several measures, base measures at once, or execute it one by one, and even carry the script over to another model. If you're working on some other project, then you can probably reuse the script as well. And the scripting language used is C#, because Tabular Editor itself is written in C#, so it makes a lot of sense that it's sort of the same language used for the tool itself that's also used for scripting inside the tool. But if you prefer, it's actually possible to use VB or specifically VB.NET instead of C#, because one of the newer versions of Tabular Editor that was released a couple of months ago actually let you change what kind of compiler you're using for the scripting language. I'm not aware of any people that are doing that, because at this point we now have a collection of useful scripts on GitHub and on the documentation for Tabular Editor, and those are all written in C#. So I think most people will just stick to using C#. And honestly, it's not that complicated to learn. I mean, if you take a look at some of the script examples that we have, they're actually quite simple, 3, 4, 5 lines of code at most, and they let you do really, really powerful stuff on your data models.
Yeah, and also I believe the best practice analyzer have some of the fixes also making script lines. So
yeah, correct. So that's also a way you could sort of learn how to use this. Oh, and actually in the new version of Tabular Editor, one of the new features that are there is a sort of macro recorder. So you can hit the little record button, and then as you're making changes to your model, it'll record these changes as a script, and so that's also a good way to learn how to write the script, because then you'll have this macro as a sort of starting place. So yeah, another good reason to purchase the commercial version once it's released.
Yeah, but also in the free version there's coming new features all the time, and I believe you're also getting feature requests and then implemented that way.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, certainly feature requests are more than welcome. I would say, though, that important new big features like DAX intelligence and better UI, high DPI stuff and stuff like that on the open source version of Tabular Editor are not likely to make it in, because it takes a lot of time to implement this stuff. What I want to do is I want to make sure that the open source version of Tabular Editor will still be supported. So whenever Microsoft releases a new version of the Tom API, I want to make sure that there's a new version of Tabular Editor that uses that, so that you're always up to date, allowing you to use the newest client libraries for connectivity and so on. But you should not expect to see many feature additions to the tool. bug fixes. Of course, if you discover if you have any issues in the open source version of Tabular Editor, please let me know. I want to make sure that everything works. But please don't expect like new major features to be added to the open source version. If you want the premium experience, well, then you have to go to the premium product.
That makes sense. Absolutely. So let's see, and we have the same scoreboard, but I believe maybe this is a little closer, but still Amadeo and Nexus is ahead of the rest. So what is the purpose of Tabular Editor's save to folder functionality? And yeah, you have 60 seconds here, but you get more points the faster you answer. So yeah, and there's in the chat, this is the Power BI desktop feature we need.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and so actually for Power BI Premium users who have access to the XMLA read-write endpoint, you can actually still benefit from this feature. Yes, so the correct answer here is that the save to folder functionality will split up the model metadata into smaller files for easier version control. So the main point here is that if you have for example, if you have an analysis services tabular model, the way Visual Studio stores the model metadata is just as a single file called the model.bim file. And as your model grows, if you're in an enterprise scenario and you're building a huge tabular model with hundreds of tables, thousands of measures, then you're just going to end up with this one huge JSON file that can easily take up several megabytes. And then the problem is if you want to have several developers who are working on adding new measures, modifying calculations and so on this tabular model, then it's going to be really hard for them to work in parallel because most version control software has a hard time dealing with singular monolithic files like this one. So what Tabular Editor offers basically is to take this giant file and just split it up into individual parts. So you will have one file for each table in the model, one file for each measure on each table, and so on. And so potentially you will end up with thousands of files in this folder structure. But if you're using version control like Subversion or Git or something like that, it's no big deal. And in fact, most version control software actually prefers working with many smaller files over a few larger files. It just works better. You will have fewer merge conflicts. And the version control software will be better able to detect what has changed where and so on. So that's the purpose of this, to enable better parallel development on your tabular model and to also pave the way for more DevOps oriented scenarios.
Yeah. So if you wanted to use this feature with Power BI Desktop, you will basically have to give off Power BI Desktop and then only use Tabular Editor for the modeling experience, and use Power BI Desktop for your reporting still.
Yeah, correct. So in that case, at a minimum you would need to have access to the Power BI Premium XMLA read-write endpoint, because once you split up your model into this format, you cannot sort of bring it back into Power BI Desktop. So the only way to deploy the model then to the Power BI service would be through the XMLA read-write endpoint, and that would require Power BI Premium capacity or Premium per user licenses. So
and right now Power BI Premium per user is free for everyone, and is I believe a couple of months more. The last thing I heard was it will be free until 1st of April. But
it's probably not going to stay free.
No. but then you can try out this feature and use and see if it's something for you. Let's see the leaderboard now. And now we have Nexus on top, and Askia is also climbing up here. and Amadeo. So could it be that Ricardo win 3 weeks in a row? That will be very, very amazing. But we still have 2 questions. And here we have the multi-select question. Which of the following operations can be performed directly through Tabular Editor's command line? So here you can answer 1, 2, 3, or all 4 of them correct. So you don't know if there's 1, 2, 3, or 4 correct. Yeah, but you will get points for every correct answer you make. But if you make 1 incorrect answer, you won't get any points. So pick them carefully. So, and I don't believe most people that have been working with Tabular Editor has been working with the command line. I can be honest and say that I've only tried it out and used this just to see features. I've not been using it so much.
This is definitely one of the more advanced features, but nonetheless very interesting, especially again if you're in an enterprise scenario with multiple developers, DevOps, continuous integration, that kind of stuff. All right, so the correct answer here is that you can execute a script through the command line, you can run a best practice analysis, and you can perform a deployment. You cannot initiate a data refresh. And so basically the idea of the Tabular Editor command line is that the command line allows you to perform sort of every kind of operation that you can also perform through the Tabular Editor UI. But allowing you to perform it through the command line allows you to create commands, scripts that you can run on a continuous integration server, such as Azure DevOps, because then that will let you sort of. So the simple example is that if you have the model.bim file, or even better, if you have the metadata saved as a folder structure, and you have that saved in a version control repository in Git or something like that, then you can use this continuous integration server to pick up the source code with Tabular Editor, run some script, perhaps to change a connection string or something like that on a data source, run a best practice analysis, which is another feature of Tabular Editor to make sure that things are looking good inside the model metadata itself, and then finally deploy that model to the Power BI Premium endpoint or to analysis services or whatever. And so all of that, you can encapsulate that in a single line of code through the command line. And that's sort of, if you really want, if you're serious about development with DevOps, with version control, doing pull requests, unit tests, all that whole shebang, then you're not getting around Tabular Editor's command line, because it really is what is enabling this kind of workflow operations for tabular models. I'm not aware of any other tool that you can use to do this kind of command line deployment and model operations on your tabular models.
Really, really powerful feature, yeah. But not a feature for initiating data for refresh. So let's.
No. And actually, the reason for that is that the design philosophy behind, at least behind the open source version of Tabular Editor, is that it's a completely offline tool, meaning that it's not going to open a connection to analysis services in order to perform some long-running operations, such as querying the model or initiating a refresh. Because as you know, a refresh could potentially take a very long time, several hours perhaps, and during that time, the connection needs to remain open. So Tabular Editor would basically be frozen while this happens. And so I decided there are other tools out there, other command line tools you can use for doing that kind of stuff. PowerShell, for example, has some standard snippets provided by Microsoft that make it very easy to refresh a model, regardless of whether it's an analysis services tabular model or a Power BI dataset. There's plenty of stuff for that. So I basically decided that, hey, that's not really needed in Tabular Editor. If you want to refresh your model as part of your DevOps pipeline, you can do that in a separate step using PowerShell or something else. Yeah.
So let's see, and still Nexus on top before the last question. But we have all people I can see that are on the scoreboard now can win, because the last question is a multi-select also. So let's see. For the last one, double points also. So what new functionality does Tabular Editor 3 brings to the table?
Yeah. So maybe you've already seen the video I did with Reed Havens back in December where I presented the tool. Maybe you're participating in the preview, or if not, well, then I guess you'll just have to guess what the correct answers are here.
So yeah, this is a multi-select, so that can be 1, 2, 3, or all 4 correctly. So let's see for the last question of the quiz tonight. Or tonight, at least here in Denmark, but today. And is the preview still open for submissions?
I mean, right now I'm not sending out additional invitations because the ones that have been invited so far have already provided a lot of useful feedback, and I want to work through that before inviting new people. But the form is still open. But yeah, as I mentioned early on, we're planning on maybe 1 or 2 more months until release. So it's limited how much you will still get out of the preview. But of course, if you're curious and would like to see it, then go ahead and sign up. And yeah, maybe if you're lucky, you'll be included in the next batch of invitations for previewing. Yeah, so we have the results here of this, and the correct answer was all of them, interestingly enough. Tabular Editor 3 brings a lot of new functionality to the table, which was not possible in the open source version of Tabular Editor. The most important one probably being the DAX intelligence that I also mentioned earlier. And this is actually the primary investment in Tabular Editor 3 is this new DAX editor that it includes. I decided to call it Daxzilla because it's based on an open source component called Scintilla, which is a code editor that's used in software like, if you know software like Notepad++, and there's a bunch of other software IDEs and so on that are all using this editor component. And so I decided to take that component and tailor it for DAX editing. And that process had taken more or less 3 years. I believe I started working on it back in 2017 when people first started bugging me about creating a better editor for DAX with intelligence and so on. And this was definitely not a trivial thing to do because in order to provide actual good intelligence for DAX code, you actually have to understand the semantics of the language. You have to understand what it is that people are actually working with and what kind of business logic they're trying to express. The parser needs to know about filter context, row context, context transition, all those concepts that exist in the DAX language. And Microsoft was not willing to provide this kind of DAX parser that would enable this as an open source component or anything like that. So I had to sort of write my own from scratch. And so that's what I did. And I actually believe that today with Tabular Editor 3, I have managed to create probably the best editor for DAX code that's out there. It's just a completely different experience from anything that you may be used to today. It's miles better than the formula bar in Power BI Desktop. It's miles better than the editor in Visual Studio. And it's just so powerful. You can do refactoring to rename variables. You can script DAX objects, so you can have several measures, for example, in a single document, so it's easy to navigate between them and compare the results. It infers all of the static types, so if you have a table expression, it knows what columns are returned from that table expression, what the data types are. And semantic syntax checking. If you make a mistake, it'll underline the part of your code where you have an error, and if you hover over it with the mouse, it'll tell you what the error is, and all of this stuff is going on, and it's just it's a complete game changer. So yeah, you really have to try it at some point to see the difference. I promise you there will be a free sort of evaluation version of Tabular Editor 3 so that everyone can get their hands of it and see how nice that is. And that's just one of the new features in Tabular Editor. So all of the other stuff here, data preview and data refresh, these are some of the new connected features of Tabular Editor, basically allowing you to browse the data in the model. You can browse the tables, scrolling down through the tables, as you know from Power BI Desktop. You can you can refresh tables. That happens asynchronously in the background, so you can keep working while it's refreshing tables, partitions, and so on. There's a diagram view, so you can visualize the relationship between tables in the model. And there's also a pivot table view, so that if you're used to working with pivot tables in Excel, or even back in the old days of SQL Server Management Studio, if you connect it to a multi-dimensional model, you could sort of browse it and slice by columns and rows and filters and so on. And that's also in Tabular Editor 3, making it much easier to debug your DAX logic, your business logic, and see if things, if all of your calculations work the way they're supposed to. So it's as I said earlier on, it's a brand new product basically. So
Yeah.
lots of
and one lucky attendee from this quiz tonight will win the raffle prize for 1 year of license to it. And all the other of you, if you isn't a part of the preview program, you can, as Daniel says, sign up for evaluation when it's released. So If you search for Tabular Editor 3 on YouTube, you will see the webinar I did with Reed Havens. It's 1 hour and 20 minutes where I sort of go through and demonstrate all of these features that I'm talking about. So if you're interested, I definitely recommend you go and check that out. Yeah, and I believe Marco and Alberto have a video course that will also cover Tabular Editor version 3 when it will be released. You have these tools video course that is now mainly around DAX Studio, but will also cover Tabular Editor later on. So, with all this talking, let's see the podium. On third place with 7 out of 10 correctly, we have Askia, and we have Alex, 8 out of 10, and with 10 out of 10 correct, we have Nexus, Ricardo from Spain.
Congratulations.
Nice. And Mango and Amadeo on the runner-up. So that is really impressive. Winning 3 quizzes in a row. I believe Ricardo have studied a lot to win this quiz, but congratulations. You now have a lot of gift cards to Lego. What will you buy for this gift cards? That's very amazing. So yeah. Congratulations. And with that said, thank you, Daniel, for taking the time out and creating this quiz for us and being the quiz master here. It's
absolutely, it was my pleasure.
It's fun to have you here. Also, even that we couldn't be in the same room, but I feel that I'm close to you. I don't know if you can say that, but yeah, thank you everyone also for participating in this quiz. And for the quiz, not next week, but in 2 weeks, we have Lucas, program manager on Power BI team, doing a quiz on a completely other topic, because that's around the end user experiences around Office and Teams. So all the things you can do in Office and Teams. So if you want to beat Ricardo, go and study around what are the features in Teams and Office that you can use with Power BI. But because that's the quiz when we see each other again in 2 weeks time. So yeah, thank you all for being part of the quiz, and thank you, Danielle, and have a good night and a good day to everyone else. And yeah, bye bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.